Emma and Dean, two high school students, embark on a school trip to Trinidad but find themselves stranded on a remote island after getting separated from their group. With only each other for company, they must put aside their personal differences and work together to increase their chances of survival, all while navigating their growing feelings for each other. The following day, Emma wakes up early and goes through her productive activities before leaving for school. Meanwhile, Dean, an introverted and troublesome teenager, rushes through his morning routine and plays video games before his father reminds him not to be late. Emma and her younger sister, Stacy, get dropped off at school by their mother, Barbara. Stacy expresses envy towards her older sister, who is the favored child. Emma then meets her best friend, Lizzie, in the hallway and is greeted by a famous quarterback player, Stephen Sullivan, which Lizzie teases her about. In class, their teacher, Mr. Christensen, announces their upcoming trip to Trinidad Sanctuary and the importance of being on time for the bus the following day. Emma arrives late and is unintentionally bumped into by Dean, who calls her a prom queen. Lizzie suggests that Dean only got on the trip because of his father's money, which annoys Emma. Later at lunch, Lizzie shares the encounter with their friends and suggests that Emma and Stephen should spend time together during the trip. Emma disagrees, wanting to focus on the trip's purpose. While Lizzie talks about the carnival in Trinidad, Emma notices Dean cutting an apple with his knife, which annoys Lizzie. Helen informs Emma and her friends that she went to school with Dean and that he is a good person. Although Lizzie disagrees, Jude supports Helen's statement. Shortly after, Miss Collier arrives and takes Dean's knife. Dean appears unfazed, and Miss Collier takes him to the principal's office for breaking school rules. Lizzie believes Emma should focus on the famous quarterback who is showing interest in her rather than someone like Dean. The next day, Emma packs her bags for the trip and thanks her parents for allowing her to go. Meanwhile, Jack reminds Dean that he worked hard to get him a spot on the trip despite his recent troubles. Christensen instructs everyone to board the bus, and Emma's mother wishes her well. At Trinidad, Collier announces that they can have fun for a few hours before the program starts the next day. Emma and her friends go to the pool and run into Stephen, while Dean watches from afar. The next day, the students begin their project to build a school for disadvantaged children. Stephen gets annoyed with Dean's behavior and remarks to Emma that he will ruin the trip for everyone. Later that day, Jude informs the group that Stephen invited them to a carnival party on a local boat. Emma lies to her parents, saying Miss Collier has called for lights out. Emma has second thoughts, but is convinced by her friends to attend. At the party, Emma finds Stephen kissing someone else and walks away upset. Dean asks Emma if she and Stephen are together as she passes by him. Emma, feeling annoyed, replies that it is none of his business. The police arrive moments later, instructing everyone to move to the front of the boat. Emma accidentally falls into the water, but Dean jumps in to save her. They swim towards a nearby dinghy, which Dean cuts loose to avoid trouble. Emma wants to return to the boat, but Dean insists they will be fine and follow the ship later. As an enormous storm approaches, Dean and Emma struggle to follow the boat and discover that the dinghy doesn't have a motor. A massive wave hits them, and they hold onto the dinghy for dear life. The next day, the trip is cancelled due to the previous night's party. Lizzie tells Collier that Emma didn't go home that night and thought she was with someone else. Collier inquires about this, and Lizzie claims that Emma isn't the type to bail and was last seen on the boat. Meanwhile, Emma and Dean have drifted to the Caribbean Sea, and Dean's phone is unusable. At the hotel, Christensen conducts an attendance check and doesn't find Dean. The parents are disappointed with the principal's response to the situation. Emma and Dean explore the island, and they find a cave that is home to several bats. They run away and return to the shore, but their dinghy is missing. Dean and Emma decide to retrace their steps and eventually set up a makeshift hut. Emma is writing SOS on the beach when Dean wakes up. They continue to survive on the island by feeding themselves with anything they can find. The day after, while Emma is taking a shower in the lagoon, Dean asks her for sunscreen. She directs him to her bags, but he informs her that he can't find any. Emma becomes anxious and reveals to Dean that something else is on the island. Meanwhile, Back in the hotel, Barbara watches the news broadcast about her missing daughter and worries. As Phil packs his belongings to return to Stacy, Barbara is hopeful and assures him that they will find their daughter. Phil comforts his wife by holding her tightly in his arms. With the search officially called off, Jack uses a helicopter to search the next day, and Barbara joins him. Emma tells her companion about how much she misses her family and tries to light a fire. However, Dean suddenly finds a skull nearby, causing Emma to cry and feel hopeless. Dean assures her that they will get home if they stick together and proceeds to kiss her passionately. They spend an intimate night together, but Emma wakes up alone the next morning. She calls out for Dean, but he is not around, so she goes into the forest to look for him. She finds him burying the remains of the person they found the day before and asks him what's going on. Dean tells her that he doesn't need anything from her, leaving her disappointed. Emma tries to convince him to open up, but she accidentally falls and wounds her knee. Dean immediately treats her wound, and she remembers that they both need hydrotherapy. Emma and Dean bathe at the lagoon, and Dean tells her about his mother's death in a car crash. Weeks pass, and the teenagers continue to enjoy their time on the island. They dive and spend more intimate moments together, and Emma admits that she has been interested in him for some time. Suddenly, they hear an approaching aircraft and rush to find the flare gun, but they can't locate it. Emma suspects that someone else is on the island, stealing their belongings. They discuss how to survive and go deeper into the forest. Emma falls sick, and Dean asks if she thinks she's pregnant. Later, a monkey throws their missing items at them, and they retrieve the flare gun. Emma fires it in desperation, which angers Dean. They argue, but later reconcile. They are rescued and finally back home, where their friends and family are glad to see them. Dean pays Emma a visit at her home later on. They talk about how they're feeling after finally back home. Dean tries to kiss her, but she denies and invites him to the party. The following morning, Emma's parents give a warm speech to the rescued students at the party. Stacy asks Dean why he isn't with everyone else, and he insistently says he isn't an everybody else type of guy. Stacy comments on how her sister is popular, unlike Dean. Dean mouths at Emma to come with him, but she rejects his request, making him leave the party in disappointment. Things get back to normal, and Emma and Dean are finally back in school. Emma's popularity grows while Dean still remains lonely. The next morning, Dean visits his mother's grave and proudly says he finally saw the green flash back at the island. On prom night, Dean watches TV at home until his father interrupts, asking if his son wants. At the party, Lizzie approaches Emma and walks her to a surprise. Appearing in front of them is Dean, wearing a tuxedo under the rain. Upon seeing him, Emma goes out of the party and kisses Dean passionately. The two happily reunite with each other, dancing. Thanks for watching till the end. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this.